So these talks we are now starting to record so that we can share them beyond people that are able to attend on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday from 1 till 2, a different artist from the Bricks Artist Programme will be sharing their different projects or current work or something that relates to their current research. And today Lisa Cole will be sharing her recent project, Tiny Cat Gallery. I'm going to give a very brief introduction to Lisa in a moment, but just a couple of things beforehand, just to say that if you prefer to have your screen off, you can do that, and we'll be having a Q&A at the end. If you prefer me to ask a question on your behalf, then you can just write it into the chat box at the bottom, or just wave your hand and ask a question. That's fine. Also, when we broadcast the recording later on, we won't include people's faces or anything unless it's in the Q&A, in which case we probably will. Okay, so a brief introduction to Lisa. Lisa Cole's work revolves around turning the intangible into something substantial and functional. Lisa uses ancient methods of making and drawing combined with new technology to capture sound as movement, movement as pattern, and pattern as form. Using nature, songs and poems as data, she creates analog generative artwork and solid forms. Her work is generally small enough to be held in the hand to give a different experience and perspective of the original sensory source. Her research interests revolve around experimental ceramics, and you can see a selection of Lisa's rocket pots well, you will be able to, I forgot that I haven't actually uploaded them. You'll be able to buy a selection of Lisa's rocket pots from our online shop on our website, probably next week. So today Lisa will be talking about her Tiny Cat Gallery, a lockdown project exploring curating and collaboration, which talks to the possibilities of artist-led projects and shows. So Lisa, if I hand over to you, Lisa's going to talk for about half an hour and then we'll have questions and answers.
Cool. Hello, everybody. Let me try and share my screen. It'll be that one. Right. Could somebody just tell me that you can see that? Okay. Can I have a thumbs up if you can see my screen? You can see. Yay. Thanks, Holly. Nice to see you, by the way. Right. Let's start the slideshow. Right. So I'm going to talk about how you can run your own art gallery from a small cardboard box and about why it was a good idea for me to do it. What's a tiny gallery? It's any space that allows artwork to appear large if it's small. So here's a few little galleries. One of my favourites on the right is the Doll's House Gallery, and it's just in the window of a Manchester house, and people can go up and have a look at it. And she changes the exhibitions regularly. But there's notice boards. I've got my eyes on the Eastern notice boards at the moment. I'd really like to run galleries there. And Tiny Art Show on Instagram they take out bricks and put little galleries in. You can see them all over Instagram. Some of them have animals as the visitors, some of them have children, some of them have real people, some of them have models. Why run one? Well, it can be really hard to get your work into a real gallery. It can be daunting. I didn't know how to do it before I started running my own gallery. And since then I've had 2 paintings in exhibitions. One of them's a reasonably big one too. And I'm just a lot more confident about how you do it and why you need to do it. It also gives you an insight that will help you see your work in a different light. So this the pictures on the right there are from Sally Elders, and she said that she wasn't the only artist who said that her big work wasn't often, let me try that again, sorry. She could see her work from a completely different viewpoint. Because I was using the viewpoint of these tiny plastic cats, she could imagine them in a large gallery. And she wasn't the only artist to say that. It gave the artists that I exhibited a unique viewpoint of their work. And it also taught me how to curate, how to display. It taught me so much about lighting and photography and promotion and marketing. It started off with an art exchange. This was an open call on Curator Space, and I swapped artworks with Lizzie Donegan, and you can see her work there in the middle. What was happening was it was vanishing on my walls. It was just getting lost. It's the two unframed pieces in the center between the I can't point, so you'll have to imagine what I'm pointing at. So what I did was I got a cardboard box and I painted it the same blue as my wall, and I put the artwork up in there. And as you can see, it made a big difference to how you can imagine it. These tiny little paintings that were getting lost on my big walls were huge in this imaginary gallery setting. And I just happened to have a whole load of plastic cats, so I used them for scale. Over 8 weeks, I exhibited 8 artists. Some of them sold really well. All of them got really positive feedback. All of them really enjoyed their time at the gallery. Let's talk about audiences. So we've got 2 different ways of portraying a tiny gallery. You could be an onlooker looking in. So this gallery here you can see on the left is it's like a traditional art gallery that shows old masters. It's got coving and architrave and all sorts of stuff going on, and tiny little people. And you're looking at the tiny little people who are looking at the artwork. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be a participant. So all the photos that I took were from the viewpoint of the cats. And that led to a whole load of narrative about the cats. What I was doing here was I was invoking, there's a song by the Velvet Underground called The Gift, and in it they very mundanely narrate the demise of this man who posts himself to his girlfriend because he misses her. And that was the kind of tone that I was trying to take. So I just write rather mundane little comments about what was happening in the gallery that day. I had regular events, so I had school parties. I had regular people or characters that would turn up. So the twins there who were sitting together on the left-hand side, they played a key part later on in the lives of the gallery. And I also had private views, which I ran live on Instagram, sorry, sometimes with stories, sometimes with photographs, sometimes with lives. And here's a couple of the little sort of comments that I was doing. So this is a heated discussion about ethics and space travel in the private view from Amy J. Wilson's work. And there's another selfie of the twins who discovered that they look very much like one of the artworks. So I wasn't saying anything at all disparaging about the artwork, and I wasn't trying to be an art critic. I wasn't doing anything kind of clever about it. I was just talking as though I was in a gallery and I was one of the cats among the cats, really. So what do you need to run a gallery? You need walls, you need something to put your artwork on, you need some floors, you need lighting. If you have any sculptures, you want plinths, and possibly that might become seating. You might want doors. I had an entrance way into my gallery that I could photograph through, so that led, oh gosh, sorry, big crash outside. Inner city living, eh? The door let me have more possibilities about, I could have doormen at the private view, and I could have, like a sign up sheet, and they could check that people were on the list and stuff. So it just gave me more opportunities for stories. And then you want to think about how you're going to fix your artwork. So I tried a whole load of things. I tried magnets and blue tack and wire and string. The easiest way I found to fix into a cardboard wall was with pins, and you can just balance your artwork on it. This exhibition you can see on the right, that's by Philip Ryland, who did a retrospective of his current work. So his work was mounted onto foam board, and it's just balancing on pins top and bottom, and the pins poke through the cardboard, and that worked really well. So all this, there's quite a lot of text in this presentation, so I will turn it eventually into a book, but at the moment you'll be able to read it on the presentation, and then I'll turn it into a blog post too, so you can copy and paste anything useful. So think about scale. How are you going to enforce a sense of scale? You could, if you had a doll's house gallery, you could use Barbies or Playmobil. I've seen dinosaurs and soldiers. If you go into a model railway shop, they will have loads of these little minuscule little people that you might want to use to develop a sense of scale. They might need painting. You might not want to paint them, but I think it's important to have some way of telling what kind of scale you're imposing onto your work. And then your events. There's no reason why you shouldn't run a gallery just for yourself. You might want to do a show for your own stuff. You might want to do a group exhibition. Private views I've talked about before. We also ran workshops. So I would make a flyer for a workshop, and the artists would either do a live or a story on their Instagram page, and I'd send people over to it. And we got people hashtagging and participating in it. I also, it would have been easy to do artist talks as well. We had school parties in the form of the cats coming in, and the odd night at the gallery. I think we had a formation dance team. The gallery, when I started, it got 50 likes a week for the first 6 weeks. So I was celebrating that in formation dance with little cats. I learned so much about working with artists that will help me to work with galleries. I didn't know beforehand anything about postage and packaging or how your work should be presented or anything. I obviously don't have insurance for a cardboard box. But I've made that clear to my artists that if they send me anything valuable, it would need to be under their insurance. I think expectations, you need to, if you're going to do this and if you're going to exhibit other people's work, let them know how many times you're going to post, let them know if you're going to blog about it or write about it. Is it going to be anywhere else? Make sure that you're not breaching their copyright, of course. You might want to sell their work. You could do it through direct messages on Instagram. I have a WordPress site, but I don't like WooCommerce, which is the general shop that you have with WordPress. So I use Shopify. I use Shopify Lite, which is $9 a month, and it's just a much smoother kind of shopping experience. Also, if you're working with artists, get their information from them, because it's very difficult to write about somebody if you don't know what's going on. So these pictures you can see at the bottom, these are actually made from voices. So I remember that the blue and yellow one you can see in the center that the little ginger cat's looking at, that's Frida Kahlo. This is Giovanni Iorio's work, and she sent it to me in these cardboard frames, which might have worked in a different setting, but they just did not work in the cardboard box. So I took them out of there, and I kind of took control of the situation, and I mounted them on foam board backlit by these little plug-in LED lights, which I think gave it a much more modern feel. The little cardboard frames with the cardboard box just made it look a bit too crafty, and I wanted it to pretend to be a gallery, a proper gallery, even though it was obviously a cardboard box. So this bit, I'm not going to talk through all these words, but they will be here for you if you need to look them up. Obviously online, because this was a lockdown project, I think I'd still continue to do this online. I'd suggest to anybody who wants to display their work that they set up a small gallery, a tiny gallery, just to give it a go. I use social media for different things. So I use Facebook for group conversations, and I've never got a decent return on my time investment with Facebook, so I'm trying to ditch it. Twitter is the place that I do my political ranting, so I try and keep that out of my artwork. Pinterest might be a really good place for a tiny gallery. It's a visual media, and it's for people who are looking for ideas. So I haven't started to look at Pinterest for a tiny gallery yet, but I reckon that's a new ground that needs breaking into. I used Instagram because it's the perfect medium for visual storytelling. And the way I got my 50 hits or 50 likes a week was I promoted others. We invented an award. We have a sharing hashtag called Micro Gallery Monday. And what I do is I look for people with hashtags like art gallery, small modern art, and then I regram them using an app. And invariably, anybody that you repost will follow you and then repost you. So it's a really good way of getting to know people. And there's now a little community of micro galleries, which is really supportive. It's lovely. What could be a tiny gallery? So this artwork in the middle, this was from the original swap, and that shelf is a perfectly viable tiny gallery, as is my cardboard box. You could even have a virtual tiny gallery. I'll show you one of those in a minute. So this is Jack Woodward, who is, he had a residency in a art college, and his main goal was to try and get art students' work shown, because he said that it was just too challenging for them and too prohibitively difficult for them to get into mainstream galleries. So I think it's on his website, but there are instructions to make that cardboard gallery in the middle. His is unashamedly a cardboard box, but he has all these little tiny people. And he's also working on portable galleries as well. So that tin you can see on the left-hand side, I remember seeing on his Instagram that he's looking at flooring. I think he's got some laminate wood for flooring. So you could have a gallery in your pocket, which is a nice idea. This is the Open Dresser Gallery. This is Sally Elders. We started our galleries at about the same time. She's been really successful with it. I think she does a new exhibition every other week, and she uses the week in between to display her own work. She also runs workshops. So the birds you see on the right hand side there was a really nice black ink drawing workshop that she ran. And this is a dresser. I suppose it's in her living room. Then we got the Doll's House Art Gallery, which I showed you at the very beginning of this. This changes regularly. I think it's just a gorgeous idea. She's also, her props are just delicious as well. Look at that. She's got those plinths, I think, are cake stands. And Grock's Gallery. Grock is a student at Bath Spa. I think he's doing his MA. And this is a virtual gallery. I particularly like this because if you look at the image on the right, of course, there's no gravity in the virtual land. So there's no reason why you shouldn't just turn on your side to go and look at something. I think that's just delicious. I also discovered recently that there's a tiny gallery bot on Twitter that will show a little sort of ASCII picture of a gallery. I need to explore how that one's done. What I suggest is that you plan an exit strategy, because after 8 weeks of running a tiny gallery, I'd lost momentum. I was doing the same storylines again and again. I'd run out of kind of slightly witty things to say, and I'd run out of storylines really. So my exit strategy was that the twins set fire to the place. But before we could call them in, they went on holiday. This is them on holiday. I don't know if you recognize the Shining hotel. So the gallery is now, it's a sodden mess in my garden because it got rained on after it got set on fire. But I strongly suggest that you plan an exit strategy, because I'd kind of invested in doing a preview every Sunday evening, which got exhausting because I had to be here at 4 o'clock to be able to do it. There wasn't so much that I could schedule in with that. And just kind of keeping an eye on it and keeping an eye on the Instagram and keeping everything flowing was actually really quite hard work. So the next iteration of it, I'm going to think about maybe doing 1 week on and 1 week off like Sally does. What's happened with the exit strategy is that I sent back the artwork from the artists, one of which had sent me a little tiny plastic cat, and in it I sent another cat, which happened to be one of these twins. And she's now posting on Instagram that they've had kittens, which is just ridiculous and very funny, and I'm really happy with that. So that's it. This is my new gallery. I'll show you it in real life in a minute. It's a box. It's the Tiny Cat Gallery Cubed TCG3. I'm taking submissions. So if you're interested in exhibiting in my tiny gallery, please give me a shout. That's it. I'm going to stop sharing now. Okay.
Thank you, Lisa. That was really, really interesting, and fantastic to see the different formats that other people have also used for kind of trying to think about scale and curation and showing. And I guess one of the really nice things is, you know, using the resources, using what you've got at a given time. I've got a question for starters from Claire. Thanks, Claire. Which is, do you think you would have done this if we'd not experienced lockdown?
Probably not. No, I think when lockdowns, I enjoyed lockdown. I thought it was great. I got loads done. I didn't have any social pressures. It was quiet outside. The garden was noisy with birds. It was lovely. But I felt that I was missing, I'm a collaborative artist, and I was missing that collaboration with people. So when I answered that open call for an art exchange, that kind of made me feel like I was connected to creatives again. And it just led on from that original art swap. I felt it was quite strange having someone else's artwork in my, even though I've got a wall of other people's artwork, I felt like I had a guest, like I needed to tidy up a bit for them. Oh, I've got someone in the house, I better hoover up. And you start to think about, I thought about them quite reverently and placed them very carefully. And I think that was sort of what led on to running a gallery, because as a gallerist, you have to be respectful of people's work, you know. So I think, no, I wouldn't have gone anywhere near this if we hadn't had lockdown.
Has it made you think differently about how you about that kind of collaboration and sort of possibilities for different communities, because obviously a lot of our world is lived through online platforms now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot that you lose from that, but there's a lot that you gain as well.
I was surprised and delighted at how supportive and lovely the Tiny Gallery community is. It's really sweet. It's just people who we think it's funny and we like the idea of it. I think, you know, that's what it is. It's just a different way of doing things. And I think when you look at the virtual galleries that are coming out, and that's extraordinary. That's a whole new world. I've looked at a couple of virtual, real size galleries, and it feels a bit like you're distanced from it, and it feels a bit unsatisfactory, really. But looking at a virtual, like Grok's one with the person on his side, why ever not? You know, that's just extraordinary. So it's opening up a whole new load of possibilities and for collaboration in a completely different realm. You know, rather than one-to-one or as a group of people meeting together, you could do anything on the internet.
Does anybody else have any questions they'd like to put to Lisa? Yeah, Holly.
Well, right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, Lisa.
Hello.
Hello. I was just wondering why you did it. And was it, did you have a plan of something you wanted to get out of it, or did you drift into it because you had a good idea? And did you get out of it what you wanted to get out of it, if you wanted to get anything out of it?
It was a total drifting. It was the initial art exchange. She's also an MA student, so she wanted to have a little sort of chat afterwards. And we were just talking, and I said, would you mind if I tried this as a gallery myself and put an open call out and see what happens? My open call was very open. I just said I didn't want any serious topics, because I didn't, you know, obviously it's a light-hearted thing. So it was to be approached with humour, but I wanted artworks of quality as well. So I didn't really know. I completely drifted into it. And the cardboard box that I initially painted became the first gallery. This is the second gallery. That's gallery number 2, which is even smaller, which is even more limiting because there's not much space in the back of that at all. And I wasn't expecting to sell stuff. I think it was just a sort of like an aside. I said to my photo artist, oh, well, should we make this for sale and see if it, you know, I'm pretending to be a gallery, so I'll take my 50%, which seems crazy. You know? But I did actually manage to sell stuff for people quite successfully. There was a couple of weeks where I was making 100 quid or so each week. So just nuts, absolutely nuts. I went into this with a very open mind kind of thing, not knowing anything about anything, never having worked with a real gallery before, so not having any kind of preconceived ideas about how it should be or how it should work. So no, completely drifted, which I think is why by week 6 I'd kind of had enough. Which is why for the next run of it, I'm going to be a much more focused about when it will end, because these things do take over your life. I had 8 weeks where I didn't have any time to do any of my own work.
But do you think it will, do you want it to expand? Are you interested in being a gallery runner now?
I'd have the confidence to run a real life gallery now. I definitely would. I mean, obviously there's other stuff like rent and light and heat and health and safety, but I think I've learned the bare bones of working with artists and displaying work and promoting. I learned so much about promoting work and selling stuff and presenting artists. The thrill of selling someone else's work is extraordinary. It's as good as selling your own stuff, honestly. So yeah, I wouldn't be at all daunted by running my own gallery now. Bring it on.
Have you got any top tips for selling artists' work?
What sold really well, so 2 artists sold really well. One was Philip Ryland. His was the little ones on the foam board. They were sort of that size and they were in a row. And the other one was Sally Elders, and her stuff was nice kind of abstract seascapes. Their work was smaller versions of their large scale, ordinary, normal work that they do every day. And I think people really like the idea of having a small part of an artist that they could afford. So Philip's work was priced at 25 and Sally's was priced at 45. and they sold quite easily at that price. It just wasn't an issue. It just went. I think Sally's sold out apart from one. Philip sold out apart from two. So I think this idea of, we don't know who the next big artist is going to be. So I could have potentially put a Picasso up there, and you could potentially for 25 quid have a piece of Picasso. I think that's kind of people's mindsets. But I think I haven't explored this idea of people who make tiny work, because it just didn't happen. It came about very organically. So it didn't happen that anybody sent me anything that was specifically tiny anyway. So I don't know. Still learning.
Does anyone else have a question they'd like to ask? Oh yeah, Ellie.
Hi Lisa, thank you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm sorry I was a bit late, but yeah, great to catch your talk. I just wanted to ask a kind of general question about your thoughts on humour in contemporary art, because it's obviously a big factor in how you've spoken about the Tiny Cat Gallery. Can you talk a bit about that?
I think well, a lot of things I do to amuse myself. So my like in my degree, I did fashion and textiles as a degree, and it was revolving around Paradise Lost. So I had houndstooth check because of the hellhounds, and I thought that was hysterical, but no one else, it's like, so a lot of this are little in jokes that I don't share with anybody. They just amuse me. I think the danger with this is that if I'm presenting someone else's work, I don't want to take the mick out of it. That's not the point of this at all, which is why I wasn't trying to be an art critic. I don't have the vocabulary or the language to be able to critique people's work in a way that wouldn't look like I was completely taking the mick. So I talk about the work, I talk about how it reminded me of stuff, or how the cats perceived it or whatever, but I wouldn't ever kind of laugh at it or say it was, look at that, it's just a load of old lines, anyone could do that, because that wasn't in my head all the time. I'm a gallerist. It just happens to be a cardboard box with little cats in.
Yeah, thank you. I have one follow-up question, if that's okay. I was going to ask as well about, so you said that you didn't have, you weren't doing any of your own practice during the running of the gallery. Do you see the running of the gallery, I mean, you've talked about it a lot as a gallerist, but do you see it as part of your own art practice, or do you see it as very much separate? Yeah, it is.
But I'm a maker, and I get really sad and unhappy if I don't make things.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a balance. It's a kind of performative artwork, I think.
Yeah.
Especially with the narratives that were coming out around it. And I'm so thrilled that the narrative is continuing. If you look on the Instagram now, the Tiny Cat Gallery has its own Instagram account. There's a whole story about these kittens that arrived when one of the twins went off on holiday.
That's amazing.
It's just amazing. So this is one of the artists. This is one of the artists who's just picked the story up and run with it, and I'm just delighted that it's kind of going on. It's just really funny. So I mean, there's also a danger. I don't want to be known as the cat woman, because already, I'm the cat woman. I don't need to look any crazier than life really is.
Lisa, I had a question about that kind of relates to what Ellie just asked, which is, I guess, the two parts of your practice. So your very active making practice, and then this online project. Obviously, with this one, storytelling is the backbone to the project. Do you use similar strategies when you're making work, your actual physical objects?
That's a really good question, which I hadn't even considered, but I suppose I do, because so the rocket parts, what I'm doing is I have a series of drawing machines in the garden that are triggered by birds and the weather, and they colour these little, I'll show you one so that you know what I'm talking about. Hang on. So that's a pot that's decorated by birds. So that's my practice at the moment is exploratory ceramics. So this came out this was a quote from William Blake. This is, "How do you know but every bird that cuts the airy way is not an immense world of delight closed by your senses 5." So there was the trigger point for this. Plus I was listening to loads of 1950s sci-fi, which is where the shape came in. And I was trying to sort of capture this intangible movement of creatures and activity that was really, really vibrant during lockdown because of the lack of pollution and then, less people wandering around. So the story's there. It's a complicated story. and it's not one that I could easily tell. So it's not like I can't do the Velvet Underground, you know, oh, he's feeling kind of lonely and he wants to see his girlfriend thing, which is what I was trying to do with the cat gallery. But there's still a definite story behind something, and which tends to come from lots of different strands, usually from literature or from music or from sometimes metaphysics.
Thanks. Does anyone else have a question? Steve, did you have a question? You kind of showed your face and then went away. No? No? Well, I've got another question, which is a sort of thinking more broadly about your work as well. I know that we've spoken before and you're kind of grappling with it, but what, you know, it's that dynamic and that relationship between design and more of a fine art context, and that's something that I'm really interested in. And oh, thanks, Matthew. You know, trying to figure out where to place yourself. Do you feel like you need to kind of make a decision and say, you know, I am this or I am that? Or do you feel like through projects like this, it gives you the opportunity to explore kind of different creative hats?
I find it's really confusing. So I'm a definite crafts person. Make is really important to me. Quality of make is really important to me. Function dictates form, definitely. You know, so all my stuff's useful. I can't just make a thing that doesn't do anything. You've got to be able to put some flowers in it or drink coffee out of it. But I'm having this debate about mugs. I've just made a series of mugs for a friend, but I think if I sell mugs, does that turn me into someone who sells in craft shops rather than someone who exhibits in a gallery? You know, I wish that I could make a piece that would just be a piece that had no other purpose than being a piece. I'm thinking of you, Holly, here with your beautiful work, you know, but I just can't do it. I can't let myself make something that doesn't have a purpose other than, you know, this is a vessel, so there's many uses for a vessel. And there's always that practicality. I think I was brought up by a wartime granny who didn't sort of hold any truck with any nonsense, so that's kind of deep in my psyche. I think everything's got to be useful, and because everything's useful, that puts me into a craft category. But it's not, it's fine art because it's come from Aristotle, and you know, it's like it's the birds are delivering me the patterns that are being generated. It's definitely fine art. It's conceptual fine art, but it's also a mug. So that's why I call it experimental ceramics, really, and I call it functional experimental. That's the best I can do. But where do I place myself? It's a real danger because I don't want to be demoted into mugs that could be mass produced.
It's really tricky, isn't it? I think with my work, I'd say that I would definitely be in the fine art camp, but most of my influences probably come more from the design field than, or music maybe, but yeah, like the Droog, you know, the Dutch designers of the 80s, and you know, those sorts of influences are much stronger for me. So it's an interesting dialogue. Maybe we'll be able to continue that with some of the other artists that are.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one, I think, especially now because we've got so much of a crossover. You know, we can wear art. And that could be a t-shirt with a print of a famous painting on it, or it could be some, you know, a piece of structural artwork that you actually put on. So there's the barriers are very indistinct. But my main battle is that my craftsmanship is really important to me. So if that means that I've then got to be a craftsperson rather than an artist, then I'm a craftsperson. That's, you know, that's the hierarchy as far as I'm concerned.
Does anyone else have any other questions? No, Penny. Hang on. Could you unmute?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
So hi, Lisa. Yeah, I've been influenced by what you've been putting on Instagram and everything. And I've now set up my own little gallery.
Have you? Is that the one? But is that behind you?
I'm me.
So give us a tour.
So it's really funny. So it took me ages to figure out what to put the gallery inside, and I wanted a really sort of smallish wardrobe because I like the book, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. But I've got a bookshelf in my hallway, and it's an old 1950s one with glass sliding doors. But I've taken the doors off at the moment. But yeah, I've just literally painted the top shelf lavender colour.
Wow.
And I called it I didn't have a clue what to call it. But because it was lavender, I've called it the Lavender Shelf Gallery, because there is a gallery called the Shelf Gallery, the Shelf.
Yeah.
And so you've got to be careful you don't have the same name as someone else as well. So I don't know if that matters. I don't know. So, and then I did some paintings. I did these 5 paintings yesterday, and they're based on, I just used purple, white, and a bit of yellow. And they're just based on abstract kind of shapes with lavender on them.
Beautiful.
But,
it's like they're glowing in there. I thought it was a white space. Thanks, Steve. I thought it was a white space with them glowing. That's amazing.
like a mauve, but I love doing it. I've just thoroughly enjoyed it, and
It's a bit addictive. Yeah, get to week 6 and you might not enjoy it so much. So, are you using anything for scale? Because if you take photos of that, there's no way of telling. I mean, and do you want it to be a shelf that are you walking past the gallery, or are you in the gallery? You know, think about. I would suggest you think about.
At the moment, I'm walking past it. I'm not sure whether to put like little figures in yet.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of doing, because this obviously is my work, so I like the idea of doing the alternating weeks. So I'd put some of my work out, and then because I live in Suffolk, so I've got lots of friends that are Suffolk artists. So I thought I could have their work in here.
I think the key to growth is not to do it in isolation. If you're wanting to grow your Instagram, is you need to be sharing other people's work. So if you're running a gallery, then that's the perfect way to do it, isn't it? Because you're sharing their stuff, and they're going to share you. Their friends are going to look at them. You know, so it's a really easy way to get a decent growth.
Yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed doing this. So thank you.
No, brilliant. I'm really impressed with it. I'm sure. So have you made Lavender Shelf Gallery into its own Instagram?
I haven't yet. So I'm going to do that. That's my next thing, because obviously the Tiny Cat Gallery has got its own Instagram. So
you can have about 5 of them on your phone at the same time, and you can just flip between them. It's nice and easy.
Brilliant. Okay, that's good.
The other thing I suggest is that to save you the bother of having to do it all the time, there's an app called Later that will let you schedule stuff. And it also lets you schedule via your desktop.
Okay.
So, you know, normally on Instagram, you've got to do it through your phone. Later, I think, has a free version. And then there's also Tailwind, which doesn't have a free version. But it means that you can do all of it from your laptop or whatever, and schedule it for the week, and then go off and do something more interesting.
And of course, I've got other shelves, so I can.
Yeah, of course. Layers of it. When I showed Jack Woodward, who did the cardboard galleries, when I showed him my cube, he said, "Oh, you could stack them." So yes, of course you can do anything with them at all.
Yeah. So,
my original idea, before I realised that for some reason I'd gone to Wilko's and bought 10 packets of plastic cats previously, so I had them all around. My original idea was to do a whole lot of silhouettes of art critics with berets on in black. That was and then I thought, well, I'll take photos with the art critics kind of in the front, and then you can see the artwork at the back. But I think using something that you found is a lot easier and quicker.
Yeah, I was looking for a smallish but I just couldn't find one. And because it already exists in my hallway.
Right, it's lovely.
Haven't got to add another piece of furniture into your house.
Are you going to have different shelves, different colours?
Do you know what? I thought about doing like the Lavender Shelf Gallery, and then having something like the Lemon Shelf Gallery.
Wow.
Orange Shelf Gallery or
it's
something.
Really exciting.
You know, so and then I can change the colours, and I can have the Shelf Gallery, and you know, so
possibilities are endless.
Yes, it's great. I'm loving it. Thank you.
I like the idea of having Brian Sewell as a kind of like model in a tiny gallery.
Yeah.
Mouthing off, being really.
If I had a decent printer, maybe that's what I would have done. Is actually taken pictures of critics and put them in. You know, you could put them in their armchair. You could have a photo. I don't know. There's so much playing that you could do with this. I think the important thing is to keep it playful, but as long as you're not disrespectful of the artist's work, you can be disrespectful of your own work, I guess.
Going back to Ellie's point.
Sorry, I missed all that.
I just wanted to go back to Ellie's point about play, and I wonder whether it's particularly useful to use these kind of playful strategies at this point, where we're, you know, with a small space like that. I guess it's a you know, it's a tactic that children use unconsciously, isn't it, to kind of have some sense of control over their environment and their world. And you know, it's the same, you know, the world around us is completely uncontrollable and chaotic anyway, but particularly at the moment. So to have that kind of control, yet do it in, you know, operate it in a really playful way, seems to be like a really important thing to be able to do, and also to be able to share that with a wider kind of online community as well, is kind of quite, I don't know, you get a kind of support from that from a few different areas, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, the Tiny Cat Gallery was in its own place. It wasn't, there was no social distancing, there was no talk of COVID, there was none of that. It was just a kind of a little sort of place that you could go and relax, really, without being, which is why all the conversations were slightly mundane. There was nothing, you know, it was just like going into a gallery and looking at some people and thinking, oh, I wonder what they're talking about. You know, they're probably having a heated discussion about ethics and space, you know. So it was that kind of thing. I miss going to galleries. I think I missed that, but I also think that I probably enjoy looking at the people more than I enjoy looking at the artwork. So yeah, it's taught me a huge amount about many things, but I also don't think I could ever take the playfulness out of what I do, even if it's private playfulness. It's you know, I've got to keep that in somehow.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lisa. It's brilliant. Just to wrap up, can you tell people how they can go about making submissions?
Yep. Shall I put a link in the thingy? Yeah.
What's your Instagram account for Tiny Cat Gallery?
Hang on a minute. Can't multitask.
So that's www.lisa. Oh, hang on. Doing this for the recording. Lisa-Cole.co.uk, and on Instagram at tiny.cat.gallery.
It's I put the links on the end slide as well, so if anybody wants to, because I put in loads of things like useful hashtags, so if anybody wants to go back and look through the slide, all those links are at the end of it. So I've got submissions are kind of open. It's going to be quite restrictive because we've only got this much space. I think we've got 18 centimeters at the back there, but there's no reason why you know, we could use all 4 walls. Could be top lit, and that's what it looks like with a cat in it. This is going back to your control thing. This is further control because there's only really one way I can take a photo of that. You know, we'll see what comes up. I've got a couple of submissions. I haven't had a chance to look at them yet, so I'm planning my strategy for that next one. It's exciting. So, and at Christmas I might do a gingerbread house one.
Oh, that sounds like there's rich opportunities for your exit strategy there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. Next week we are going to be here at the same time, Wednesday 1 till 2, and we have Jo Lathwood next week, who'll be talking about ladders and how they figure in her recent public art projects. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Lisa. Bye.
Thank you.